and welcome to this episode of the SC Podcast. I'm your host, Justin McRoberts, and this is your co-host, Dan Portnoy. Hi, Dan.
Hello!
Dan and I are running through, running's probably not the word we're going to use. Dan and I are trotting, we're slogging through, we are galloping, we are gallivanting, we are spending time, yes, we're briskly walking somewhat slowly.
Briskly walking.
In circles around these chapters. From the book Sacred Strides, which was released a little over a year ago. This podcast series is an opportunity for you to kind of dig into things behind the chapters, and if you have not checked out the book, to give you lots of reasons to check out the book. It was on sale. I don't know if you saw that it was on sale last week, Dan. It was on sale, Kindle. What's funny is folks messaging me, they're like, dude, I thought your book was like $3.99 or whatever it was. It's like $1.99 for a while. I was like, I was. But they thought it was for the soft cover paperback. I was like,
oh yes,
I don't make the rules. I don't make the rules.
That's not a thing. The only place you can get a book for $1.99 is at Goodwill. I'm pretty sure.
Let's be honest.
Like a soft cover book.
Yep. I mean, it jumped from wherever it was on the in the Amazon charts to the number one. We were number one in rites and ceremonies.
Right.
I didn't even know I was running that race. I had no idea.
It's weird because that's when the Gregorian chants start, as soon as you're number one.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like,
yeah.
And the publishers make these decisions about, like, this is the category your book's in, you know, and I think they do it so that you can get some number ones, which is fine. But I was like, it's like, I'm winning this race against other books in the category of rites and ceremonies. Boy.
Yes. I don't even know what would other books in that category be, like Introduction to the Eucharist,
or like like how to manage a funeral when things aren't going well between the family members. Like if someone hasn't read that
your
book.
Morgue.
Great. That's what I'm saying. What am I? what kids am I winning against right now? Like who did I beat to be number one in rites and ceremonies? I don't really want to know, actually. All I want to do is win, man. That's all. I'm just trying to win. Just out here racking up
winning.
W's.
That's why you wrote a book called Sacred Strides, because you wanted to win.
I'm out there just racking up dubs. That's it.
Yeah. Dubs. All W's.
Speaking of running to win, this chapter is actually called I'm Not Running to Win. It's actually what the
Incredible segue.
Wow. You guys. Professionals.
Chapter 12.
Chapter 12. I am not running to win. Trading your soul for the world. If you've not been following along, this is the first time you've run to this podcast, or it's just been a minute since you heard us talk about this. Each chapter has obviously a chapter number, and then each chapter has a dual title. One is kind of the poetic-ish title. The other one is the title that I couldn't let go of in the editing process, and so I begged to have two.
Right, that's a specific subchapter in the rites and ceremonies. Is your dual chapter book.
Dual chapter building. Yes, exactly. I'm doing another project right now. That it's another solo release, and I can't. And I was asked about the title of the book. I'm like, I got nothing. In fact, I don't have a thing. I wish. I'm happy with the project. It's a bunch of poems that were originally going to be in Sacred Strides. But I can't come up with a title for it, so we'll see. It'll probably be called Title Pending again.
Yeah, Title Pending. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, call it Title Pending. Perfect. Yeah, that really worked out the first time, too.
The first time. People were like, you wrote a book called Title Pending? I'm like, it's not even like you titled it that way. They're like, there was a book. That's how crap the title was, is folks saw it and they're like, oh, so when does it arrive? No, that's it. Great. Cool. Sales points. Way to go, McRoberts. Boy, if you're not running to win, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Good job not trying to win.
When Amazon doesn't know what to do with it. Like,
yes.
What?
The Amazon algorithm got my book.
We don't know what to do with this one.
We can't do shit with this because you titled it so poorly. Amazon was like, what? We give you everything you could possibly ask for. You hand me this. I thought I knew you.
Subcategory is you don't know what to call it.
Right. Nameless.
Yeah, something.
Uncategorized.
Nameless.
Boy, You've really hit the bottom when you're in the uncategorized section at Amazon. It's like that's like being the books behind the books at the Goodwill. That's where you are.
It's like Encyclopedia Britannica from 1978.
Yes, maybe some Hardy Boys, like an old Bible,
right.
And then behind that, me.
And, right next to the Left Behind series, complete.
Oof, right there,
complete. Have you been to I just love to go to Goodwill and look at it, and there is always a complete set of the Left Behind series. Always.
I never read it.
Always. Same.
Okay, good for you.
Did not. I stuck to the 1970s Larry Norman song. Thief of the Night series. Yes,
yeah, what if we'd all been ready or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah. No, yes. I wish we'd all been ready. That's what it was.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I wish we'd all been ready. That's so sad.
Yes, and I peed my pants at least twice while watching those movies.
Just the images of people long-haired 70s rock star Christians like floating off into the sky, waving at the sad suckers behind them like me, be like, "Sorry, you weren't ready."
Get ready for the gallows. That's what it is.
Well, so this chapter, I'm not running to win. What are your thoughts, man? What'd you notice?
It's so funny because in my notes, actually in here is this book might be just about you failing the whole time.
A lot of it is.
I got to this chapter and I was just like, this is your worst hits. This just over and over. Is just your worst hit. So today in our keeping up with the failings is that where do we start? We're starting with a weekly rest day and how it's not working.
This thing, you mean the conversation at the very beginning, is he serious?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, the not working part was that I was giving a presentation at a retreat for burned out people. And my kind of burned out people who are looking to kind of reinvent. A lot of them were burned out, but they're trying to reinvent their lives and how they go about doing their work. And a lot of them do really important work. And I had done this presentation on Sabbath keeping and talked about this is what it looks like. And it's, you pull 52 days a year off the calendar. And I left. I wrapped up the presentation. I was there for an hour or so afterwards, and then I got on a plane and I was flying to the East Coast. In the meantime, one of the gentlemen who'd been sitting in the session went and found the program director and was livid at my presentation. I can't. What he honestly said, he walked up to her and he says, "Is he serious? He can't be serious." And was he felt like my suggestion, because I had come up with this whole thing called Sabbath keeping. I developed this notion. It's an idea. Wow. Yep, you like that?
5,000 years in the making there.
Yeah, it fits. It's all mine. Because I'd scandalously come up with this notion, this idea of keeping Sabbath, and he heard it that I didn't take him seriously as a person. What he meant was, does he not understand how important the job is and how vital it is that I do this thing and do it well? That if you couldn't be taking me seriously and seriously tell me that I should pull 52 days a year off the calendar for work. That's the beginning of this chapter. Is someone really, really did not like the fact that I was suggesting 52 days off the calendar of work and Sabbath keeping.
And not surprising, it's I think that's a response of so many ministry-minded individuals. That's usually the big one.
Well, that's right. That's the urgency part. It's and that was the conversation we eventually had. We had it as a team afterwards, but I also later, probably a year and a half later, I saw him, and he changed his tune a little bit. But in short, was the urgency of certain work tends to we tend to be convinced by the urgency of some certain works that because the work is so important, I can't take my health as seriously. Like I cannot prioritize my well-being because the work is so important. That was the intersection that he and I had met at. Was I was saying that the work is important. In fact, the work is so important that you should be whole and healthy while doing it. And so the script towards the tail end of the chapter, I've kind of flipped the script in the direction of like, no, like you can't be serious. Like you can't be serious about like wanting to do really important work with kids, with like with other humans, and show up tired most of the time. Like you're telling me you want to show up at 70% to do this really important work. You can't be serious. Is how that's how the story turns a tad later on.
Yeah, and then you move from there, which I think that's also just a really good point of just, especially with his specific work in his caring for kids, of the idea of like you've got to be sharp all the time because you're gonna mess some kid up.
Oh yeah, and it happens, and it's the I might be in this chapter. I might have told the story. I'm looking right now to see if I did. There are two reference points. I mean, one is, maybe it's not in this chapter, but elsewhere I talk about there was an anesthesiologist.
Yeah, it's in this book. It's in this.
It's in this chapter?
Mm-hmm. Yep, later on. Yep, that's perfect.
The anesthesiologist who was administering anesthetic to Amy when she was giving birth via C-section to, I think it was Asa. I don't remember exactly which one of the kids it was. I only had the two. And he was tired. Like he was very clearly tired. So she's on the table and they're starting the process, and she starts hallucinating while she's on the table. And I was like, that's probably not good. She's mumbling things, and I was like, hey, what are the chances there's, I think it was Percocet. Can't remember what the thing was. What's the chances there's Percocet in the mixture? And he was like, pretty high. Why? I said, because like it says on her chart not to administer Percocet because she has allergic reactions to Percocet. And he freaked out, like, oh my gosh, Then he's dialing up a new mixture or whatever, and eventually she sort of settles down. But like, that's a really important job, and he's on the clock. It's not like he got like, it's not like he was like a bench player and he got called in. Like, he's on the clock. He's at work when he's supposed to be at work during the hours he's being paid to do, like everything. But he's not capable of doing the job well, as important as it is, because he's so damn tired. And we do that kind of thing to folks. A lot of the malpractice in ministry and business in medicine has to do with exhaustion. We're so tired, and we're so driven by like putting in the hours, knocking it out. The job is too important, and for me to like take a break, that we actually end up showing up at 70%, and that 30% gap. It can be incredibly damaging, especially for folks in ministry and doing emotional work with people. You could be damaging people left and right, and you won't notice it because you're so damn tired. And then the biblical parallel to that is the storm story. That they have this. I'm going to see if I can pull it up the way I talk about in the chapter. Jesus is crossing crossing a lake with a huge body of water with his disciples. This is in Mark, and a storm pops up, and it's pretty wild. And Jesus is asleep in the front of the boat. And the thing the disciples say about Jesus as they look up, they're like, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" And what they have Jesus is there asleep in the boat. He's in the same storm they're in. they are convinced by the chaos around them, and that becomes what's real. Like, this is the most important thing. The urgency, the wildness, the threat is what is going to determine how I respond to the world. And Jesus seems to kind of push back and say, like, no, like, I'm your metric. I'm not freaking out. If you let the urgencies and the wildness and the undoneness of the world around you dictate how you respond, you're going to live in stress, you're going to live in chaos, and you will live in unhealth. So when folks like me get into work, that the kind of work that I've done for a long time, where like most of the time if I'm on a coaching call, like there's something, there's like real life stuff happening in people's hearts, minds, lives, bodies, bank accounts, and it's like it's urgent. But if I'm energized by or addicted to that urgency, then I won't show up. I won't show up at the altitude I need to show up at. I'll be predicating my energies and responses on urgency rather than like showing up in health and changing chaos into order. That's the biblical parallel as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then but the story with the anesthesiologist, the wild part was that what he did next. It wasn't that he just was ready to go and then he finds out about it, and he and I think this is a thing that I know I struggle with, of like, he made a phone call.
Yep. Yeah, he got her mixture back where it was supposed to be, and then he somehow in the midst got a hold of someone else who was in the hospital to come relieve him, which is and there, I think the scene is in there when the other anesthesiologist came walking in, like they hugged, and the guy was like in tears, and like, but he legit called for help from someone who knew him, and like played the humble move and was like, I can't do this job. He didn't try to white knuckle it, be like, listen, I am an anesthesiologist. I'm trained. I've been here before. I can deal with my exhaustion. He recognized that if he's going to continue to work at the level of exhaustion because he's on the clock and the job is urgent, he's going to make a mistake. In fact, he already did. And it could have been so much worse. It could have been so much worse. So he actually went and got the help he needed so that someone else could do the job for him. That is a thing that we often, I will say that I often have in the past lacked the courage and the humility to do, is to like tap out, like calling the lefty, like I can't do this. I can't pull this off. I'm going to do this poorly. To actually, like, I like that move. Like, I can't pitch to this batter. We need to go get someone else. What Sabbath keeping does is it preemptively sets us up to do that. One, because we're in the practice of saying no to things in general. It's hard to say no in the moment. This is the job in front of you. You're on the clock. And then, like, you're supposed to say yes. But if everything in your body is like, we're going to blow this because we're not in a good place. If I'm not practiced at saying no, I won't say no. I'll just keep saying yes because that's what I'm practiced at. So Sabbath keeping actually, it strengthens the emotional muscle in me that can deny urgency in the moment of urgency and say, I know there's a storm around me. I know this thing is happening. I know I'm on the clock, but I know some other things more deeply. And so I'm going to say no to this. We get practice at actually saying no because in the moment, the pressure is almost always too high. And I can always justify overworking because what I do is too urgent. It also changes the tide. It also changes like the rhythm of our lives in any ways, that I become in general less addicted to urgency. That I practice being okay with myself. I practice because there's always something. I practice like prioritizing my health and my well-being so that I'm not as addicted to urgency. Because at the heart of a lot of the jobs that we take that actually move us towards exhaustion is this sort of addiction to making things right, to an addiction to like to saving the world, an addiction to like we over attach our identities to like we're going to be the generation that ends poverty, or we're going to fix the church, or we're going to make, we're going to get homeless people off the street, and that becomes our identity. Sabbath keeping like helps to like slowly pry that addiction out of my life so that I'm not as hooked on urgency to begin with.
Yeah, and also I think it's funny because you say it back here a little bit of like when you use that where you say you take care of this and I'll take care of everything else.
Oh yeah, the sort of the heart quote of the chapter is Sabbath has changed me. I'd even go so far as to say that it saved me. Having taken 52 workdays off the year calendar, having taken 52 workdays a year off the calendar, I've begun to hear the loving voice of God say, "Son, you can't do it all. Do the part you can. The rest is mine, so leave it to me." And that's just a healthier, theologically, is just more sound, but also emotionally and otherwise, that's just a much more peaceful and stable and sustainable posture with which to approach even important work. If I feel like it's on me, I'm going to overwork. So I have to theologically, emotionally, otherwise convince myself and practice reality that it's not on me, that I can put it down, and that, like as was said, like you're always going to have the poor with you. Like that problem will be here tomorrow, and it'll wait for you.
Yeah, that was one of the first things said to me when I first joined a church staff, 2002. They were just like, get okay with there's still stuff to do, and where you feel like I can put this down now and go home. They were just really about it.
Yes,
it was really wild how it was. Just the balance. That was the first thing. Well, there were two things that were talked about right away. One was, did I read Harry Potter? And the answer was like, no. And they were like, why not? It's amazing. And then they gave me the books. That was weird.
I like that.
And then the second thing was literally about boundaries and knowing full well that you. And they also talked about having a target on your back as someone who does ministry, because you are a refuge.
Yes.
For so many people. Immediately you are a counselor. Like immediately everybody goes, I have problems, and you're a good ear, so I'm gonna just dump on you. And that is such a hard thing, because I tend to hold on to it too much when people and I have to be like, this isn't mine. I need to put this down.
And the desire to hold on to it comes from a good place. Like I want to care for people.
Sure.
It's why we take the important jobs we take, is because we want to do great work in the world. What we lose in the process when we pay attention to the wind and the waves around us, we lose the fact that I'm the gift being given, and if I'm not the best version of myself, I'm actually probably not contributing to like the redemptive arc the way I want to. Which is why, like, and I do this in this chapter, it's not just anecdotal. Like these aren't, I try to do that in this chapter because this is important. It's not just like anecdotal, like it's hard to do hard work and people get tired and pastors and artists kind of get worn out. Like the numbers, there was a study that I quote here from that came out of Duke. 11% of pastors report being clinically depressed. Two notes there. One is like on average, like the broad numbers, it's like 3.8 to 3.9% of the overall populace. That's like less than 4% of most of people on the whole. 11% of people in ministry. That's more than double the number of people in ministry. Like you have a 200% greater chance of finding yourself in a state of depression if you're a minister. 51% of pastors have metabolic syndrome, which is the series of conditions that like lead to heart attacks and strokes and type 2 diabetes. Which is to say, the ministers like people who work in ministry, have a 6% higher heart attack rate than people in other jobs.
Dang.
Pivot to this: 3 in 5 pastors burn out within the first 10 years, and we're not talking about like they decide to no longer be in ministry. We're talking about folks who like actually experienced like clinical burnout. 3 in 5 is 60%. That
In
number
10
is
years.
within 10 years. That number is astounding. I mean, it's just these are the numbers that should stop herds of bison. Like, this is a massive. It's like 80% or 90% of pastors confess to not having any friends, no, like at all, or close friends.
That sounds like when someone's like, I'm gonna open up a restaurant, and they're like 90% die in the first year. Like, that's like this huge.
Yes.
That's a massive number.
So paying attention to, and this is the sort of like odd carrot stick piece of doing important, meaningful work, is the importance and the meaningfulness of the work you're choosing to do will draw you into that. That's why you want to do it, because it's important. But you can't let your life's patterns be predicated on urgency and importance. You can't. You have to allow your life's patterns to be formed around your health, your well-being, so that you can offer the best of yourself in important, valuable places. And that's not anecdotal. That's not just a cute story. Look at the freaking numbers and look at the numbers, and then also like pay attention if you want to still hang out an anecdote. Like, what are the stories we've been hearing over the last like 10 to 15 years about folks in ministry? It's like, these are people who are in awful situations emotionally. 37% of pastors admit to having addictions to things like porn. Those are the folks that just they just confess it. They admit it. But when you talk about 11% of pastors, like, saying, admitting that they have depression,
reporting, yeah,
those are just the ones who are able to like notice it, claim it, and articulate it out loud. I'm guessing that number is higher.
Sure. It's not hard to imagine.
It's not hard to
imagine because I don't think, just like that anesthesiologist, I don't think a lot of people are like going to do the tap out, like admit things. I don't think that it's just like, what, I'm called to do this, so this is what I do, and they sacrifice their family on that altar, and they sacrifice their relationships and their kids, and it's just a rough go.
So in the light of all that, when this chapter starts out with this gentleman saying, is he serious? He can't be serious. In light of those statistics, my pushback is, you can't be serious. You can't be serious about doing important work if you're not going to take the time to take care of yourself. Like, you're not being serious.
Right.
You are purposefully and willfully entering into processes and practices that will lead to injury for you and for the people you're wanting to care for. And it's inexcusable, and you can't actually be serious if you think you're going to go about doing it that way. If you don't have a regular practice of care and of rest, you cannot possibly be serious about doing important work.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That is a good way to put it. You end with, you get kind of, a little artsy here at the end.
Okay.
With the conversation, and then with one of these prayers that, like, I know you're very famous for doing this on Instagram.
Yes.
And it's very popular, and everybody loves it.
I'm very famous.
You're very famous for this.
Yeah,
you're number one in rites and rituals. So we know that you are. Just in case you were ever worried, like, am I getting a large head about being number one in rites and ceremonies? No, don't worry about it. You're good.
Don't worry about it.
I got you. Anyway, but I think, and can I have you read it? Your last little piece that you do here, your short prayer.
The context for this was I'd had a conversation like later on down the line. Same, this retreat series I've been doing for like 7 or 8 years. Like, we see a lot of the same kinds of folks come through, and so after the same presentation, had a really similar conversation with someone else. One, I'm just better at the job now because I've learned more about the folks in front of me. So I was in a more generous place as well, and I also wasn't leaving on a flight. But the gentleman kind of brought up the same question about but the job is so important, and so we had more of a conversation. And the conversation went like this. He said, I can't just see how I can take that much time off and still be effective. To which I responded, you mean there's too much to do and then all that's important? He said, yes. I said, is it of vital importance that adolescents come to a saving knowledge of the love of God? He said, yes. I said, and is that the mission of your organization? He said, yes. Is that also your mission personally? And he said, yes. And I said, is that mission worth your soul? And he smiled and giggled, and he said, no. I mean, I think I'm supposed to say no. And what's fascinating about that moment, I remember very, very clearly, is like, that should be one of those things that, like, if we're talking about someone else and we talk about like the sacrifice of someone's soul, don't sell your soul to the, just don't sell your soul, period. Like, we know that at a distance. But urgency and importance will shroud like really basic, simple knowledge and make you the exception. Mm-hmm. Is ministry worth your soul? No. I mean, I think I'm supposed to say no. And then I said, but you shouldn't have to make that choice, should you? Because doing the work well shouldn't be antithetical to being healthy. So at the tail end of the session, I sat down and I wrote this poem prayer that may have ended up in one of the prayer books. I don't remember. May I never sacrifice my health and wholeness on the altar of productivity. Let my work be rooted in my full humanity and in grace.
Yeah, it's weird. I never thought of it in terms of like a Faustian bargain that is actually
it absolutely
happening.
Is, and I think that's actually like a great reference point. It is a Faustian bargain. If you, then I. Yes.
It's wild. It's wild.
Well,
good stuff, man.
Thanks,
good
Dan.
Stuff.
Glad you're here. And thank you for listening to this episode of the At Sea Podcast. If you haven't heard the previous episodes, if this is your first time checking this out, there are 11 other episodes of this in which we dig into multiple chapters, and we're having a great time doing it. If you've not read the book Sacred Strides, it is not for sale right now for $1.99, but it is worth whatever you spend on it because it's a really good book. And you can pick that up if you go to heartsandmindsbooks.com and pick it up from Buy on Border, or if you like the Amazon machine, you want to click, you can go do that too. The book is everywhere, and we are not everywhere. We're just right here, right now, and then we're going to go away. Thanks, Dan. Talk soon.